Yes, whoever controls the media controls the mind. It's a popular saying of an American singer, songwriter, and a poet, Jim Morrison. And that's to tell you how important media is in the society. Of course, they may not, tell you what to think, but certainly will guide your thoughts on what to think about. And yesterday, of course, we started a conversation about the media agenda, most especially in our quest for the socio-economic development in the country. And yes, we looked at different issues of media convergence. We talked about the regulation of the new media, some of the challenges the traditional media, or if you like, the mainstream media in Nigeria is faced with. And today, certainly we will continue on that path, as of course we are going to deal extensively more on these issues. Of course, we're going to have some key personalities in the media sector to talk to us more about some of these issues. We started yesterday.
Yes, we opened the door to this very interesting conversation yesterday. 2020 has been quite an interesting year. A lot has happened, locally and internationally. And in all of that, it's been the media that has been at the forefront, broadcasting accurate and authentic information for the most part. Although there's that discordant tune every now and then. People who put on fake news, who put on unauthentic information, with a mischievous agenda to sometimes bring about chaos and anarchy. But thankfully, thus far, they've been quite unsuccessful. And it is our task to ensure that it remains so. Yesterday, Sule, you had the privilege to talk with Sam and Isaiah,
yes.
the founder of Leadership Newspaper. I also spoke with the DG of the Voice of Nigeria. We continue today as well. I spoke with Honorable Farouk Aliyu recently. And we have the privilege to also welcome the Director General of the National Broadcasting Corporation.
Very important person when we
Professor
talk about
Armstrong Idachaba.
Exactly.
Yes, quite key. And also we have our contributors from different zones also showing the Nigerian public as well as the world that the media will continue to remain at the forefront of sharing, enlightening, informing them and everyone else with accurate information.
Exactly.
My name is Thelma Obas.
And my name is Suleiman Babaji Osman. It's always a pleasure to have you join us on the show.
You're watching We Can Deal, and it's always a pleasure to have your company. It's time to take a look at Francis's research. He's gone about, he's spoken to people to further share our vision, our task, our responsibilities, how far we have come, where we are now, where we are going, talking about mainstream media and social media. Francis, what did you find?
In the 1950s, radio and television stations were established first in the western region of Nigeria, which was quickly followed by the eastern region a few years later. Today, the Nigerian media landscape is crowded with scores of newspapers, magazines, radio, television, and the new media. It is the ability of the media to give importance or prominence to an issue while de-emphasizing or ignoring others in the process of communication that gives the media its agenda-setting capability.
That is one of the major assignments, responsibilities of an effective media. Agenda setting. You must have to set agenda. And I can tell you that substantially, we have not shirked in that responsibility. We are up to it, And one would say that we may not have 100%, we may not be delivering. But sometimes we have constraints. We are restrained.
Most of the times, either we're doing just keeping the public abreast of what is going on, or we're reacting. It's most times reactionary, journalism. That's what I've noticed. So on setting of agenda, there's a lot to do there.
While the media can help to strengthen government institutions, especially through its watchdog role, significant reform is needed to strengthen media organizations to go beyond routine journalism into investigative journalism.
We still have an appreciable number of professionals who are committed to investigative journalism, which of course is the best way to go. That's the way to go. If you want to win laurels in this profession, if you want to get recognitions, international recognitions, local recognitions, of course, it has to do with your exclusive packages, which must come via investigative journalism. So it is something that we must have to continue to encourage our colleagues. And let us not continue to rely on press releases. Let's not become press release journalists.
I don't think we are doing enough on investigative journalism in this country. There are so many things to unearth. A lot of times, governments want to hide so much information, and also a lot of times the private sector also have things to hide. In fact, everybody has things to hide, but it is the duty, the job of a journalist to unearth this and portray the truth in such ways that shouldn't lose credibility amongst members of the public. But we are not doing that,
There is a general acceptance of the profound role the media plays in addressing critical social needs and in improving the lives of the people in any society. However, it is amazing when professional ethics are being violated intentionally. For instance, various sensational headlines without corresponding content.
I don't think that there is any credible platform. There is no credible platform, a reliable voice that would indulge in yellow journalism. I'm telling you the truth. Because by the time you begin to drop those job-breaking headlines, and they are entirely different from what the body of your story. You do it once, twice, thrice. Of course, the credibility of that platform is in jeopardy. Yes, I know that sometimes they do it to also market, to sell their platforms, so that when you see such a screaming headline, you rush to it. And by the time you open it, you see a different thing.
Many communities are marginalized due to geographical reasons. Different ethnic, social, and complex political backgrounds also make the situation even more complicated.
We don't seem to be doing that follow-up. Sometimes you go through a story, the next thing you see is details later. You wait ad infinitum. The details will never come. So our people will continue to encourage them. But sometimes, like I said, trying to now do the follow-up and get all the details and all that takes a lot too. Oftentimes you have an organization that is not ready to fund that. It becomes a problem. The reporter himself, his take-home is practically nothing. And he's not going to take that from that one that is almost nothing to still fund this follow-up. So you can see the constraints.
Following up a story is also a major issue we have in this country. The trend is a story pops up and it is interesting, especially sensational stories, even when they have good content to it that really should be followed up. But at the rev of the moment, people just get excited, and before you know it, we hardly hear of such stories again. And this is not good for journalism.
The convergence of old and new media has resulted to a paradigm shift affecting all media. Today, almost all the mainstream media in Nigeria now have an online presence with a considerable number of viewers and readers on Facebook and other social media platforms.
There is no traditional media that is not operating online. There's none now. Of course, as the online platforms are breaking the news, the traditional media, they're equally breaking the news. And let me tell you, most online platforms even rely on the traditional media now for their own stories.
Today on Weekend Deal, our focus will be on media as agenda setters in Nigeria.
Of course, the Nigerian media landscape is described to be the most vibrant in Africa, and yes, certainly we have some challenges that the mainstream media, if you like, the new media, these challenges are being confronted with by these, mediums. And then there's always been this ongoing argument, Thelma, about the need to regulate the new media. It's a very, intricate, very dicey, very complicated thing to do. It's very so, but certainly there must be a balance in a way in order to ensure that what happens in that landscape, in that space, is very, very accurate and responsible.
That is so key. As time goes on, we'll have more independent broadcasters who may not be trained who may not conform to the usual standards. But like you have already said, what is key for every patriot, if you respect and love Nigeria, you will do what will bind us and not what will separate us.
Okay, definitely. And of course, yesterday after the show, Thelma actually had a conversation with Honorable Farouk Aliu, where they talked about, the role of media in our democratic journey as a nation. So let's take that interview now.
It's always great to keep your company on our program, Weekend Deal. No doubt you learned a bit from that feature we just took. Let's meet our next guest. We're talking about the role of the media in a democratic setting. Will you describe Nigeria's democracy as a fledgling one? How has the media fared thus far? But I will not be the one answering those questions. Let's meet our guest, Honorable Farouk Aliu. He's a businessman or an entrepreneur and a politician. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you.
People are talking about the convergence of the media. Traditional media, which is television, radio, and print, as well as the new media. In terms of convergence, to the extent that we can highlight happenings in our democratic dispensation as well as politics, have you seen a synergy that is working well for our country?
To me, they are working at cross purposes. I mean, because the social media, the new media, sadly, most of it are tainted with half-baked news, untrue, fake news, in most cases, because they don't seem to have anything at stake. Some, it's one Mohammed, John, Bayo, Emeka, somewhere that nobody knows where, will sit down and churn out lies. NTA cannot do that. FRCN cannot do that. But yes, there are some private media houses that can do that, that can go as low as, in the new media. So I think probably there should be an association that let's put our country first. That you need to have the country first before you could even start doing anything. So there should be some convergence in such a way that probably the Minister of Information can call meeting. That look, why don't you have whoever is in power? This has got nothing to do with Buhari or Jonathan or anybody, but whoever is in power, you should project your country in good light. And then anybody who does anything wrong should be exposed. That's how we can correct ourselves, but not for you because of somebody's religion, ethnicity, where he comes from, to churn out lies that, So I think the media needs to do a lot. Probably this is where the government comes in now. The government needs to call on the media houses, also the conscience of Nigerians, because I can see every day when you check the social media, you see lies, and some are true. Like there are some graphic pictures. Let me give you an example of the fight against Boko Haram. There are some pictures or some videos that ought not to be shown. Simple. One, you are jeopardizing our military that are, putting their lives to defend us in the name of just being, the first to break the news. You don't remember that, look, your actions could bring your country in bad light. So that kind of thing. This is what certainly the public media will not be seen to be doing such a thing. So probably the government needs to put all of you guys together and say, look, our country first. Don't look at the person in power. Look at your country. What do you do to project your country in good light? What do you do to make sure that your country is in peace? Because if there is no peace and harmony, the social media will probably have to run away somewhere.
A sense of patriotism must come in, and it is obvious that some people may not fully comprehend what patriotism represents. They take some personal matters to an extreme. Perhaps we need to check ourselves in that regard. But let's look at the print media. There's been talk about sensational headlines that hardly have follow-ups. Sometimes they may be true, but they latch on. People look, they want to know more, and then it filters out. How can we handle it? First of all, is this a fact? And if it is, what ought we to do at this point?
Well, it is a fact. Unfortunately for them, I sympathize with them because they are running out of market. Because you wait for the print media, like newspaper that will come the next day. Before the next day, you would have seen all the news. So they trying to catch up. That's where this sensation come about. Now, instead of them to censor themselves, you see a headline that when you open, you will see the continuation somewhere, remote. Yes, but I think they're doing that to survive. But they don't know they are killing themselves. Because by the time you see those kind of headlines 2-3 times, you don't buy the papers anymore. So I hope they will come to terms that, look, the world has moved on. They should also go online. And like all of them are real online. They should at the same time try to go real time online and then come with the fact, not come with the sensational headlines that will make people lose confidence in them.
There's much talk about the take home, that the take home for the media blanket now across board is affecting the quality of its representation. Because the media, like you've said now, people look up, whether they know it or not, they look up to the media. You've nicely differentiated where this one stands, why they do this, how they do this. So without even knowing, the media has an enormous responsibility, not just to represent government or private sector or Nigeria well, but to do it in a way that will bring harmony. So how can we tell the truth effectively and still be sure that we're holding the nation together? Because sometimes the truth is bitter.
Well, difference between truth and reality. When you always say the truth, then you will always be on the side of the truth. Someday you'll be vindicated. But in a complex society like ours, there are some times that truth, you will have to taint it for fairness, for people to understand, so that truth can, just like I gave you example of the Boko Haram thing. There was a video that was shown about 2 days ago where members of Boko Haram executed some 5 paid workers. Now, you cannot see such a thing on CNN. They will not show that. You can't see that on NTA. NTA will not show that kind of a thing. So if as a people don't understand that, look, you have to censor yourself. That is the truth. It has happened. They were killed, yes. But what will it portray you as a people? What would the families of those people feel? Put yourself in their position. So you should censor yourself by yourself. So I think that's where the patriotism comes in now. That you have to, no matter what you feel of your country, you have no other country but your country. If you condemn your country, it's of you to do your bit. If all of us do our bit, the country will be a better place. That's why I said, look, let's not look at who is in power, who is in government, but our country. I remember some years back during the Bosnian War, when an American soldier was shot down on his aircraft, the American government scrambled 60 aircrafts, 60, to rescue that man. And that man was rescued. So you see, that kind of patriotism, that kind of feeling. Now, if you give your country your best, your country should be able to do that also. Then this where also the politicians come, whereby the politicians also should have sense of nationalism. Whatever the politicians or those in authority should do, they should do things that will make the citizens have confidence in the government of the day, to make sure that, look, whatever I do, let the people see it to have been done in the right way. Then if that is done, the public does its own, the government does its own, then we can have a better society with patriotic citizens. But now, well, there are, yes, patriotic people in this country, but there are a lot of people who feel, well, to hell with everything, but I call on those people who feel they have lost hope. Let's not lose hope. Let's believe in ourselves. Let's believe in our country. Let's make sure, because look, no matter how bad we think, Nigeria is a great country. I'm telling you, if you travel to Benin Republic or Mali, you know that, look, what you think you don't have in Nigeria, you think you have everything. So I'm telling you, we have a great country. All we need to do is to come together and ensure that we live peacefully, somehow, to ensure that Nigeria continue to be a great country.
Fantastic. I'm gradually moving to where I'll ask what I consider a very critical question. We've done 50 years of broadcasting, and for the most part, we're doing traditional broadcasting, print, television, radio. But the way things are now, it is compulsory for the traditional media to join social media. So what happens to the practices and the methods that media has learned over time? How do we now tell an accurate story of what is happening in Nigeria in such a way that we don't water down the meaningfulness or the importance of our story?
I think that's why you need to make sure your archives work very well. You need to move ahead. You cannot start editing the way you used to edit, because the world has moved. So these things should go to the archives so that students of history or students of literature or students of information can know. But we cannot go back to 50 years ago when probably a director will be shouting, probably those kind of things. Now look at seamless thing that is happening now. So if we say we're going to go back to that time, the world will move ahead. So I think we should archive libraries for history, and you guys are not doing badly. You're catching up. I mean, NTA, it's live all over the place. So I think you're catching up. I just hope you will not be like the new media somewhere along the line. No. But so far, so good, and you're doing very well.
Please give us your final words.
Well, my final word, honestly, on media, to me, you guys have, honestly, after saying all the things I said, you've done your best in the best situation you find yourselves. Now, if we blame media, you are part of Nigeria. So whatever, you are a reflection of the country. So whatever you do, good or bad, it's us as a people. So if the people of the country improve, the media will improve. We are one and the same. So that's why whenever anybody tells you that the judiciary is bad or the police are bad, are you good? Are you bad? So look at yourself. So us as a people should come together and make sure we do the right thing. Then everything will be in place.
Thank you for your time with us on Weekend Deal today. It has been a very enlightening and learning experience, not just for me, I'm sure our viewers as well. I've been talking with Honorable Farouk Aliyu. He's a politician and a businessman, and he has come on Weekend Deal today to share his experience and expertise in both fields with us. We are a learning medium, and we want to improve the quality of our delivery at all levels. You're watching Weekend Deal. Don't go away.
Thank you, Thelma. Of course, that interview took place yesterday with Honorable Farouk Aliu. Quite an engaging conversation there, Thelma. And of course, we talked about different things to do with even the regulation of the new media. I'm sure Professor Armstrong Idachiba, it's somewhere around the corner. I'm sure he'll speak to some of these, salient issues we have in our media cycle.
Interesting. It's always best, we need to balance them. That's what the media is known for. Honorable Farouk has spoken, always an interesting person to chat with and learn from. And his view on some areas may not tally with other people.
Definitely.
But of course he has his reasons. And it's always a great pleasure to hear from the man at the helm of affairs at the NBC. He will tell us what it is and where this journey is heading at this time.
And of course, to our viewers, keep sending your views, your contributions, your questions. Of course, you know who our next guest is gonna be. So keep sending your messages. We'll get to share it with the other viewers as well. So, Thelma, where do we go next?
It's Ore. We're spending time with Ore. She's been busy this past week talking about sensational headlines and sometimes why some stories lack depth, why they lack authenticity, and why they neglect to follow up, because the viewers and the readers will like to know why. Ore, take it away.
The media provides information which is the most relevant food for thought, portrays the major issues of society, and reflects people's minds, events, and topics that are seen as vital to society and public interest.
The Constitution requires that in a democratic setting like ours, there should be organs of government. In other words, you have the executive, you have the legislature, and then you have the judiciary. While the legislature makes the laws, the executive implement the laws, while the judiciary interpret the law. The media is expected to criticize the law. Criticism in this context does not mean running down, no. Evaluating the role of these organs to see how well or not they have performed their duties, and then to call them to order, to hold them to account in public good.
When COVID-19 was coming up, and I saw the RTDG of the National Broadcasting Commission, Professor Armstrong Idachiba, he was moving around media houses to go and sensitize them. But for the role of the traditional media, or for the role of the newspapers, and the television houses, and the radio stations, what would have happened in Nigeria here would have been catastrophic.
The best headlines serve as irresistible invitation to read the rest of the content. Writing catchy, effective headlines takes a lot of work. Don't overpromise in your headlines and underdeliver in your content.
When this content does not correlate for the first time, the second time, the third time, I avoid your paper. And it becomes a stigma. So it does not pay in the long run. It may pay for the short term, but not in the long run.
Somebody might just post something down, believing that this is the best I could do. Really, you go through it and say, what is wrong with this guy? It's the capacity. But outside of that, there are people that just deliberately go out to do that. Let me give an information that is distorted, that is not totally true. Let me couch it with some verisimilitude of facts so that people can buy it.
The general rule is that headlines of stories are summary intro. They are summary of the story. In other words, the headline summarizes the content of the story. So what you see in the headline is expected to be illustrated in details in the body of the story. But sometimes, newspapers and then news media operate in a competition. So, they source their story from the same pool. So, some newspaper houses or some media organizations want to cast headlines that will make them stand out. Okay. So they bring in the emotional element to the news.
Another issue prevalent in the media today is lack of follow-ups on juicy stories, which amounts from a couple of reasons.
As media practitioners, we operate within a system, and it's difficult to live outside of the capacity of that system. We have the personnel, the human capital to do so. Those people who say, they don't follow up on stories, they don't do this one, they don't do this one. If now there is new break, assuming a Kaduna, can you be mobilized to be there immediately? No. I have worked with friends working in international media. Some of them are in Abuja here. When news break anywhere in Nigeria, they have the capacity to just call a flight at the airport and you charter it. That is media. What I'm saying is that we live in a system. If the system has not fully empowered you to do something, no matter the knowledge that you have, you can't do it.
The managers of the particular media organization have not taken time to rein in or to call their editors to order. And they need to do that because their reputation is very important. And then why standards are falling again? Because people are in a hurry to get better jobs, and then the experienced hands are not there in the newsroom anymore.
In the face of this, many still try to maintain high standards. Nevertheless, that is no excuse for malicious fiction to be presented as fact.
Well, thank you, Orwe, for that wonderful report. And like we did inform you earlier, we have our guest here with us in the studio, the Director General of Nigerian Broadcasting Commission, in person of Professor Armstrong Idachaba. You're welcome to our studio.
Thank you, Sule. Happy Sunday to you.
Same to you, sir. It's always a pleasure to be in your midst. Now, different issues, coming along the way, which of course we're going to engage you with. But right now, let's look at the role of new media in growth and development of Nigeria.
Social media is often described as the new media, easing information dissemination, such that one person can post some information from the east and it is seen and read and further shared by someone from the north, by making possible a nation's policies and keeping the national goals and national accomplishments always before the public.
First and foremost, it has changed the course of communication and what news is in the entire world. News used to be what had happened. News is now what is happening. So, courtesy of the new media, I think whatever that is happening, so whatever that is going on, it goes in straight into your personal mobile hand devices, and you see it even before the mainstream media carries that story.
The social media, as we all know, that is the citizens' journalism, in other words. It has come to stay. When it comes to the issue of publicizing the activities of either government, individuals, organizations, companies, whatever, publicity has greatly improved through social media, that is to say Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, and the rest.
Furthermore, creative, innovative, and ingenious people of all ages can channel their visions and craftsmanship to a wide range of people using social media platforms.
It has been of help to me because it promotes business through social media.
We use social media as a medium to communicate in various adverts. For example, we were using this social media in this market, that's GSM Village. We used to advertise our products, a different variety of funds that we have around us.
Social media is actually also an avenue in which one can be able to reach out so many friends, even outside Nigeria and within Nigeria.
The new media is widely used by over 29.3 million Nigerians. It can be described as a melting pot of various influences and cultures. The social media is filled with identity, theft, cyberbullying, decreased social interaction in real life, and social isolation. Therefore, parents and guardians should always monitor the use of social media by their children and wards.
Some of the effect of using social media, people need to be very careful, because even the federal government has been talking about hate speeches. Hate speeches usually carried by social medias. There are informations that can be distorted. The first person that will pass the information, it may be correct. But the second person that may transmit the information may alter it because it has openings for alteration. So social media is very dangerous at times. So it has social effect. We call it social effect in the sense that it's not that dangerous to entirely that it kills, but it's socially in the sense that it affects populace. That's why it has the effect.
Thank you, Fatima from Maiduguri there, talking about the utilizing new media for growth and development. You already know that the Director General, the National Broadcasting Commission, Professor Armstrong Idachaba, is here with us. So let's quickly move to and take off with that conversation. Somebody here is reaching out from Jos, and it says the traditional media and the way of communication has helped Nigerians a great deal. It has kept us informed, educated, and entertained. Nandom Wiyap from Jos. I know that is a very interesting roadmap for the National Broadcasting Commission. How does that roadmap look at this time?
Thank you very much, Thelma, Sule, and viewers. Like I said at the beginning, happy Sunday. I want to commend the NTA for the initiative of this introspection. It's not always that the media has the chance, the space to interrogate itself, and I'm glad that you've been doing this for most part of the weekend. We hope that you keep this as documents that you also review from time to time as a way of also self-analyzing and re-evaluating what your role should be going forward. Yes, the media has consistently played a very critical role in Nigeria's national development, and it's not only in Nigeria. In virtually every society, the media remains very cardinal to meeting national objectives. If you take the history of Nigeria, from the pre-colonial to colonial and post-colonial, what emerges as a pattern where the media has more or less had to define and redirect and repurpose the direction of national development. And it has done it, albeit very, very constructively. If you cast your mind back, there are some of our earliest nationalists themselves had to be media persons. That gave them the gap, that gave them the latitude to question maladministration during the colonial era, and some of those agitations and questionings, if you follow, led to what all of us are enjoying today as the political independence. And we have also found over time that in view of the agenda-setting role of the media has been able to hold government accountable to the people. Colonial, like I said, and even in post-colonial. If you follow the emergence of Nigeria's democracies, First, Second, Third Republic, you will have found out that the media at every interval was able to identify a national malice, was able to question existing authority, and was able to more or less stimulate or galvanize certain levels of cultural, social, political transformations that have led one way or the other to national development. But that is not to say that some of the national issues have gone away. We have strands and threads of national challenges that are surviving with time, that have remained front burner issues for national development, which the media must also continue to reinterrogate and question, like the issue of corruption. It has been there from pre-colonial, colonial, post-colonial, and it remains a problem, you know. With the expectation everywhere, and we expect that the media will remain very vigilant, you know, to that purpose, you know, of bringing out issues that confront the nation at every particular point and address them in a manner that we either find solutions or we are able to call for aggregate solution finding in the process.
Okay, now, Prof, of course, you put you dissect different role of the media from the pre-colonial, colonial to post-colonial. But you have been in this business for a very long time now. Would you say there are noticeable differences in terms of a comparison between what we used to have in the media, you know, landscape then and now?
Yes, to the extent that then and now, then media was fully structured. and not only was it fully structured, it was more or less controlled fully by government, both on the operational level and at the level of regulation. There was a time that NTA was both the regulator and the operator of television in Nigeria. Yes, yeah, that's true. So and that happened to have been the case in almost every climb, looking at the emergence of broadcasting. But what has happened over time is that there's been a gradual, or even if you want, a sporadic deregulation, of the industry, such that there's liberalization. So what you now find are private enterprises, business people also getting into the business of broadcasting, and that is why you have private sector broadcasting initiatives, and then you also have government-owned broadcast initiatives, and to some extent community and public-oriented broadcast initiatives. So there's a radicalization, positive evolutionary radicalization of the maximization of broadcast potential, such that there's more involvement, and this has also led somehow to more interest and more participation, and I think that if viewed holistically, it also empowers the citizenry in more ways than it used to be. And you now find increasingly that people are able to create niche within the superstructure of broadcasting. There are those who probably just want to exploit the entertainment component, and they wouldn't give a damn about news, and they can easily go, because the vehicles are there, to specialize basically on entertainment. There are those who don't, who concentrate their energies and creative impulses on doing political stories, and they create a niche for themselves doing politics, and they get a lot of traffic and attention and audience viewership and involvement, by driving political content. There's those who do science. So there's a multiplicity, of creative potential and also of engagement, and I think that is healthy for national development.
And that's growth and development. That's progress in a way. We will not go into regulation now. But we're gradually moving in that direction. But let me ask you something. When I was talking with Honorable Farouk Aliyu, he said that sometimes he said crime in quotes that are committed by some broadcast media networks, that they get just a slap on the wrist. He said sometimes the consequence for what has been done wrong doesn't fit the crime. How do we look at that?
By the way, I was opportune to listen to Honorable Farouk briefly. By the way, he's a very frank speaker. I like to listen to him all the time. I think he was more or less advocating a sledgehammer approach, and where there are many others who will disagree with him. There are those whose view is that even the media should not be regulated at all, but that is a very defeatist view. There are those who think that, the media has to be highly regulated, but for me, both as intellectual and regulator, the idea of media regulation is one that is supposed to mitigate damage or harm to society. What is paramount is what media content does to the good of society. And we have seen from the Nigerian example that there are instances where the NBC severally had cause to shut down broadcast stations. I personally was in Ekiti State during the Ayo Fayose election, and I was more or less responsible for closing down the Ekiti radio when the governor at that time was going ahead to declare election results by himself. That was definitely going to lead to breakdown of law and order and anarchy. Now, at that time, the regulator has no option rather than to shut down. Now, when you set up a pirate radio station, that comes up with highly inciting, fractious content that is abusive of the harmony and peace of Nigeria, you deliberately want to incite violence, of course, the regulator will not sit back and watch. The regulator definitely will have to take appropriate action. But when a broadcast station, for instance, is engaged in certain infractions, and by the way, broadcast regulation classifies degrees of breaches, and I tell you, there are some that are less severe, compared to others. Like I told you, the major one is the one that intends deliberately, to instill violence and lead to breakdown of law and order. Or a broadcast station that just emerges without any level of authorization, or licensing. Of course, that also has to be taken off. But if you commit an infraction regarding advertising, for instance, and the law says you cannot advertise more than 30 seconds, and you probably just exceed to 40, 50 seconds, the regulator may be doing an overkill if he decides to shut you down completely, for that kind of a breach. So I agree that there are levels of severity of fines. Where any breach with potential to create breakdown of law and order that's outrightly inciting, that's dividing Nigerians, we will not allow to continue.
You will not sit down and watch. Suleiman, just hold your thought for a few minutes. Thank you very much, Director General, NBC. We will take something on regulation. And when we come back, Sule, you have a large window to continue to explore that area, which we are going to delve into. Let's join Channel 10, all the way from Lagos, talking about media and its regulation, especially the new media.
The media are purveyors of information across the world. A vast majority of people all around the world rely upon various media for keeping themselves updated on various trending issues. Apart from the conventional media such as television, radio, and newspaper, people can now check out the latest news and current affairs with just few clicks on mobile gadgets and computers with access to the internet. The new media, which include Facebook, YouTube, WhatsApp, Instagram, Twitter, have become indispensable because the new media is interactive, very easily processed, stored, transformed, retrieved, hyperlinked, easily searched for and accessed. It has become a great way for people to pass the time, stay connected, and get goods and services.
So we use it to communicate to friends and to the small business that I do, I use it to communicate with them also.
The issue of this pandemic that we are all facing, I just use it most of the time to update and maybe just wish my friends well on their birthdays and all of that. But I'm not really into social media because, you can't trust it totally. Due to changing times and its World Wide Web nature, most people have moved away from what used to be to what it is. And everyone is now on social media. With the numerous advantages of these social media platforms, such as reach and accessibility, businesses have thrived. Entrepreneurs have been able to build their brands, and people now have access to information at the tips of their fingers. It is also worthy of note that these social media platforms, such as Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, and a host of others, have been the haven of perpetrators of evil actions, such as frauds, fake news, hate speech and videos, through negative feedbacks, individual and national embarrassments, security breach, and more.
I feel like social media has been able to send fast message to people right on their phone and on their gadgets, which makes it super easy. The most important disadvantage is spreading the wrong story, sharing the wrong story on your platform. A lot of bloggers have been guilty of this, thereby misguiding their fans and their readers. I feel like that's a major disadvantage of social media. And again, it also gives people access to know what's you've been up to.
It is not surprising that the Nigerian Senate Assembly recently introduced anti-social media bill in November 2019 to criminalize the use of the social media in peddling false or malicious information. Although this did not sit well with many, as it was viewed as an infringement of freedom of speech and expression. There has to be an injection of sanity into the social media space, which is totally becoming out of control.
You can never restrict the use of social media. The same law that forbids you not to write anything about anybody in the newspaper, which is defamation, the same law that forbids you, that is libel and slander, not to say anything that you know not to be correct about somebody. The same law that is also binding you if you go to social media and still start saying something that is not the correct position. Fake news can cause breakdown of law and order.
Measures have been taken by some of the social media sites owners, such as YouTube, Facebook, and more, to reduce and remove inappropriate content for safety and security. Some countries around the world, including Nigeria, are making laws, reviewing laws, and redefining laws to regulate the excesses noticeable on social media. Suffice to say that social media present a number of dangers that require urgent and immediate regulations. We owe ourselves as social media users a responsibility to our society to ensure that we do not allow it to become an instrument of danger, conflict, and war, as well as destruction.
Some are saying that by the time you start regulating the social media, freedom of speech might not be obtainable in that space.
Thank you, Sule. I think that the fear that media regulation will stifle freedom of expression is largely unfounded. All over the world, fact is, social media has enhanced media pluralism in more ways than one. Access to media has been more enhanced, by the emergence of social media. Speed, interactiveness, largely been well enhanced, by the social media. The gains are very obvious. But again, like anything that comes with a lot of attractive quality, with speed, even as we have said, with magical possibilities, then there's also a great need for restraint, because you can also go on overdrive. And that is what we are saying. You have freedom of expression, but what kind of expressions are you making? Are you sensitive to the feelings of other people in the course of expressing your own freedom? What you have seen is unregulated, uncontrolled, quite irrational, and in sometimes usually insensitive comments emanating from social media.
Yesterday or day before yesterday, you had to come out to say that the Honorable Minister of Information did not say anything about banning
Big Brother
Niger from broadcast.
Meanwhile, the twist had gone on air already.
Again, that's part of the challenge we have with credibility of information dissemination. A very credible news organization probably have come to the NBC to say what is the position on this matter. But like you saw, all the stories emanated or are the realm of speculation. So that is what social media, that is why we want the social media users or influencers to do. They need to up the ante by getting a bit more professional, a bit more guided, rather than operate at the level of speculation and innuendos. Why don't you establish credibility and trust, by verifying and authenticating any information before you post? And that is what you will not do as credible traditional media. You naturally will want to authenticate the story. You'll want to verify, and you are sure that it is true before you post. That doesn't happen on social media. And that was what we were discussing earlier on when I said that, interestingly, it appears that there is an ironic twist within the attraction, befalling the attraction of social media. The social media is gradually undoing itself with regards to credibility. When it emerged, people ran to it for story, breaking news, and all of that stuff. But what has happened over time is that when something breaks on social media, a lot of people say, wait a minute, and let me check if NTA has taken it. So there's definitely a credibility gap, with social media news dissemination, which we want the social media influencers and those who use the social media. What we expect them to do is to be able to imbue, some of those ethical credentials, so that they do what is appropriate, what is believable, what is truthful, and what is credible.
And become role models indeed.
Exactly.
Even if you're not working with NTA or channels or AIT or TVC, you are a responsible and responsive Nigerian, and you know what is up, what can bring unity, what can create chaos and anarchy, and you should do what should bind us together. Thank you very much, Professor Armstrong Idachaba. I told Wale that I had never met you. I told my boss, Mr. Wale Coker, I've never met you, but I told him that I'm sure with all I've heard, at the first time I would meet you, the impact will be great, and it will be going on for quite a while. This chat we had today will been going on in my mind for quite some time, but I'm sure it will happen with Sule too. Thank you for making the time to come to talk with Nigerians today on Weekend Deal.
Thank you, Thelma, Sule, and I must commend you guys at NTA for keeping the flag of Nigeria broadcasting running high. I came in this morning, I met a full production house. Underscores the value of what you do and your commitment to duty. I know the DG is watching. Kudos to your staff, DG. Keep it up.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll go on a break now. Weekend Deal will continue. Please stay with us. Our focal point has been on mainstream media, new media, regulation, being the voice of the voiceless, talking about making heroes out of villains, talking about a convergence of the traditional media and the social media. And just before we wind up, let me just take 2 messages. This is coming from Takai. He says, "Thank you, mainstream media. You're doing a great job." He's also advising other media houses to continue to balance all their news, just like we did today. Hassan Idris from Taraba State says his advice about the regulation of social media is that those who send in fake news should be tracked down and they should be penalized and made to face the consequences.
Well,
how do you see that, Sule?
Well said, really, because that's the essence. Whatever you put out there, make sure that it's not offensive, make sure it's accurate, and above all, be responsible in your engagement with social media. Very key moving forward.
I even ask myself sometimes, like I'm chatting with you, everything I'm saying with you, I can defend. I can stand by it. But what you post on social media, were you to meet all those who follow you or who you follow face to face, can you say, can you display, can you do all those things? So what you cannot do when you see eye to eye, why do it just because you seem to be faceless or they seem to be too? Have a great week, Nigeria.
Sure. Well, that is much we can accommodate on the show today. Next weekend, certainly we'll bring you a new topic that we are going to interact with. But for now, have a blessed Sunday.
Bye-bye.